So I'll first check if there's anybody here that should be in the blood donor clinic. As I shared coming in the door tonight, the word politic comes from the Greek blood-sucking tick. So it kind of works here tonight. So just leave the blood sucking for over there and let's be positive here tonight. So good evening, everyone. I wish to start by sharing that I received a call from Dan Matheson, the chair of the ad hoc committee at 4:30. He's having some medical struggles, and so I will share his thoughts. Is this thing echoing here? I feel like I'm no, I'm all right. I will share his thoughts and also do the moderating tonight. Okay? So please bear with me. So on behalf of the ad hoc committee, the Grand Trunk Renewal Committee, I wish to extend my warm welcome to each and every one of you to the Grand Trunk Dialogue 1. Where are we and where do we go from here? We are thrilled to have all of you join us on this important project. I'm going to begin, as we do with all council events, city events, with the land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that Stratford is positioned on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the neutral Andawanderans peoples. As we gather, we are reminded that the city of Stratford is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples today. We acknowledge that Stratford is situated on land that was shared between the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the neutral Andawanderans peoples. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and play and gather here tonight on this land. So once again, welcome. I see many familiar faces in the audience, and it's wonderful to have such a diverse group of individuals here, including community leaders, partners, and residents. Your presence here speaks volumes about your commitment to the future of our community. I'd like to acknowledge the ad hoc Grand Trunk Committee in particular. In 2023, the Stratford City Council established the committee to provide support and a forum for input and exchange of ideas on the renewal of the Grand Trunk building, as well as to advise council on the execution of the master plan and the redevelopment of the site. Council also appointed working group chairs to explore a variety of topics such as environmental concerns, financial models, communication, partnership, and planning. The committees have been meeting monthly since November and undertaking a significant amount of work, including this series of events, the content of an expanded website presence on the Engage Stratford, and the development of a renewed set of guiding principles for the project. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the committee members that are in attendance here this evening, and I'm going to ask those members to stand and remain standing as I call the names. Barb Cottle, Citizen at Large. Barb's over here. Franklin Pham, Economic Development. Thank you, Franklin. Georgia Neely, our youth representative. From Education, Mark Vandenbosch. Where's Mark? I saw him. Thank you, Mark, for being here. Melanie Hare, Planner. There you are, Melanie. Thank you. Ron Dotson, representing Theatre. Thank you, Ron. Trudy Jonkman, the SLAW Committee member. Alan Kaspersky, with regards to coordinator. I saw he's at the back wall. Welcome. John Kastner, co-chair of Communication, Advocacy, and Civic Engagement. There we are, John. Karen Haslam, co-chair of Partnerships. Karen was at the door. Thank you, Karen. Ray Harson, coordinator as well. Thank you, Ray. And Joni Gerber from Invest Stratford. And we'll be hearing more from Joni later on. So a little round of applause to this group. Thank you very much. So tonight we gather to delve into the topic that not only is significant, but also deeply meaningful to all of us, to the future of the Grand Trunk site. This event is not just about discussing ideas, it's about shaping the path forward together. This is the first event in a series of events planned by the ad hoc committee and the city to share information, imagine what is possible, and make it happen together. Tonight's presentations will focus on the history, opportunity, present state, and the upcoming process for the Grand Trunk Renewal. So I'm going to introduce those, or not introduce, or acknowledge those people that will be speaking here tonight. As I mentioned earlier, Georgia Neely, she will represent the youth in our community. John Kastner will represent the history of the Grand Trunk. Joni Gerber, the economic opportunities presented by this redevelopment project. Melanie Hare on the 2018 master plan, and Trudy Jonkman on the opportunity and experience for older adults. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to our esteemed speakers who have graciously agreed to share their insights and expertise with us tonight. Their contributions will undoubtedly enrich our understanding and inspire us to envision a brighter future for our community. Throughout the evening, we encourage active participation from each of you. Your questions, comments, and ideas are not only welcome but valued. Let's engage in open, respectful dialogue as we explore the opportunities and challenges ahead. In the interest of time, we will take a few questions from the presenters at the end of all the presentations. Make a note of your question as we go through this evening and which speaker you would like to address that question. And as I said, those will be addressed at the end. While we won't be able to answer everyone's questions, the speakers and members of the committee will be available for conversation after the formal portion of this agenda. We are also collecting your insights through a small activity called Greetings from the Future. You can write your short note sharing what you hope to experience for what's going to be at the Grand Trunk site in the future. And those can be addressed over there at the far table. As this is an event to connect the city of Stratford, it is important for us to acknowledge the workplace, respectful workplace policy. And this policy also adheres to and is important for the ad hoc committee meetings as well. So I'm going to share that piece with you, our respectful workplace policy at this time. The Corporation of the City of Stratford is committed to providing quality service to all members of the public. Our goal is to promote a safe, healthy, respectful, inclusive, and positive environment for all members of the public, council, and employees. The city's respectful workplace policy is available on the city's website, along with examples of inappropriate or disrespectful behavior that will not be tolerated. The city will not tolerate any behavior that is hostile, humiliating, and denies people their dignity and respect in our workplace. All city employees, council members, and members of the public have the responsibility to treat people with respect. Creating a safe and respectful workplace and public spaces is a shared responsibility. It is the city's expectation that all members present here tonight adhere to this policy. I'm going to move now into my greetings and my thoughts. So as the mayor of Stratford, it is my pleasure and pride to extend a warm welcome to each of you on behalf of City Council. Tonight marks a pivotal moment in our journey towards shaping the future of our beloved community, Stratford. I would like to begin by expressing our deepest gratitude to the Ad Hoc Committee for their unwavering dedication and tireless efforts in spearheading this important dialogue. Their commitment to ensuring that a variety of voices are heard and a variety of perspectives considered is commendable. It is through their collaborative approach that we stand here tonight, poised to embark on the next chapter of the Grand Trunk Renewal Project. To all the attendees gathered here this evening, I extend my heartfelt appreciation for your presence and participation. Your engagement demonstrates a shared commitment to the prosperity and well-being of our community. I am confident that together we will chart a course towards a brighter future. As we gather here tonight to discuss the Grand Trunk Renewal Project and its implications for our city, I am filled with excitement and optimism for the possibilities lie ahead. And I was thinking today that I can imagine the optimism that was part of the onlookers as they watched that big structure being built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. That same optimism, I believe, is here with us tonight. This project represents not only physical development, but also a symbol of progress, unity, and resilience. It is a testament to our collective vision and determination to create a thriving, sustainable community for generations to come. On behalf of City Council, I want to assure you of our support and commitment to this development project. We are dedicated to working hand in hand with the community and partners to ensure its success and to realize the shared aspirations of our community and its residents. In closing, I invite each of you to engage wholeheartedly in tonight's discussion, to share your insight and contribute your ideas towards shaping the future of our city. Together, let us embrace the opportunities that lie before us and seize the chance to build a better tomorrow for ourselves and the future generations. So we're going to begin with our presentations. I'm going to start by introducing our youth representative, Georgia Neely, who I know from personal experience in coaching this fine athlete and fine student. Georgia is a grade 12 student at Stratford District Secondary School. Georgia is, and I know this from her mom, is incredibly active in both our Stratford community and the high school. She is a member of Stratford District Secondary School Eco Club, where she has participated in climate marches, rallies, and talks. She is a member of Student Council, where she collaborates with others to organize food rallies and other school events. Her excitement, insight, and perspectives have been instrumental in the work of the committee. And I also will, just to give her a little bit of an out here, she is writing an exam tomorrow, so after she speaks tonight, she's going to deke out with our permission. But if you really needed a note, I could have written you a note as principal of that establishment at one point. So I won't write the note though. So I'm going to invite you forward. Please, Georgia.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ritzma, for that lovely introduction. I feel very honored. Oh, there's a lot of you from up here. Hi, everyone. My name is Georgia Neely, and I am the current youth representative for the Ad Hoc Grand Trunk Renewal Committee. I wanted to start off by saying thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy lives to join me here this evening. What we discuss at this meeting is important to me, to you, and to our future. As the youth representative of this group, I am therefore the youngest, but with my age does not come a lack of responsibility or sense of perspective. This project affects each and every one of us, regardless of generation. A citywide renovation of this magnitude will impact all the generations to come, and it's our job as the committee to make sure that impact is a positive one. And my job to make sure the young voices of tomorrow are heard. Thus far, our discussions and meetings have given me hope for our future. The idea that this project will try to encapsulate new gym spaces with the Y, new educational spaces with the university and middle school, potential new library spaces, and much more makes me excited for the kids to come. And honestly, a little jealous. I mean, the idea of a central community hub built and designed for all ages, a safe space for all ethnicities, beliefs, and backgrounds, for all people. Where was this when I was growing up? And of course, ensuring the space is as green as possible means making sure it will be sustainable for many lifetimes and not another burden for our children to carry. While of course maintaining some elements of our history, because we are nothing without those who came before. A location like this for teens and kids could change lives, could be the birthing place of lifelong friendships and necessary support. For me, being a part of something like this makes me feel like I'm giving back to the community that has given me so much. It makes me feel like I am leaving a mark on this city that may very well last forever. My goal as youth representative is to aid with this project in any way I can to give the future kids and people of Stratford the resources they need to live a happy, healthier, and more supported life, so they never have to ask, where was this when I was younger? That's why I'm on this committee. For me, for you, for them. For the yesterday, for the now, and of course, for the tomorrow. Thank you.
Well, thank you, George, and I'm glad I'm not running against you for a mayoral spot. Could be a mayor of the future. Good luck on your exam tomorrow, Georgia. So next, I'm going to invite John Kastner to the podium. John was appointed by council as co-chair, along with Andrew Hilton, of the Communication and Advocacy and Civic Engagement Working Group. John is a lifelong resident of Stratford or Kastnerville. He spent 33 years at the Beacon Herald, where his degree in English came in handy, and recently completed a 10-year career at the Stratford Perth Museum, where his degree in history came in handy. John has also always taken a keen interest in local history, and for this project, particularly around the history and social impact of the shops. While at the Stratford Perth Museum, John worked with his team to develop a permanent exhibit devoted to the shops. John will share the history and the story of the shops with us this evening. John, the floor is yours.
Well, first off, I would like to compliment the city on getting the lectern from the NBA All-Star game. Completely oblivious to the 5'4" guy who was going to present up here. So thanks very much. This is great work. It's really fitting for a transition from my role at the museum to transition into this. It's a site that's meant a lot to this community and by extension to me. For 33 years at the Beacon Herald, the CNR shops was a regular topic for editorials, there's a regular topic for news articles, and when this opportunity came up and there was a chance to have a little bit of a hand on the tiller, as it were, as to what happened next year, I thought it'd be a great opportunity. So next slide, please. One of the things I want to talk about really briefly is the timeline. And I think for a lot of people that lived here in Stratford, we've got a bit of an idea as to how things happen and when things happen, but I wanted to, leading up to tonight, provide a bit of clarity about that. So I've got 8 minutes. This started in 1870, so 150 years of history in 8 minutes. So we're not going to go through this line by line, but there is a couple things I want to talk about. 1870, the shops begin on its current site, not huge, but it is 30,000 square feet, and hundreds of families move into Stratford in a period of months. So, we start to think about the economic impact and the labor impact, and I'm going to talk about the social impact of the sites as well. But, the city population basically doubled in a matter of months because of the shops. 1886, the city supported it at the time. It was not unusual. It's still not unusual for a municipality to give money to an industry to move here. We still hear about that. The city gives $60,000 in 1886 to have the shops expand, the Grand Trunk Railway shops expand. Stratford wins the bid against Montreal and against Winnipeg, and they expand to 125,000 square feet. Next huge expansion, 1909, this time doubling to 270,000 square feet. And this is where the social impact begins to really affect. I currently live on Argyle Street, and the shops bought 4 city blocks and turned it into really a factory town. And there was Mackenzie Street, Stratford Street, Nelson Street, and Argyle Street, 4 one-block streets. And if you look at those streets now, they're starting to gentrify, and it's really become, as the city has a very vibrant residential area on the cusp of downtown, it can look back to its beginnings really with the shops. If you want to just hit the next slide for me there. So this is where we're going to talk about the social impact here. That next huge expansion took place in 1909, went to 250,000 square feet. They bought 4 city blocks. All of the houses in those 4 city blocks were rented or sold to workers. If you look at the picture in the top right, in Dean Robinson's book, he refers to those houses as the 5 sisters. So those 5 houses, which are on St. David Street, they're all nearly identical. That picture was taken about 2 weeks ago, and those houses were all part of that expansion that began in 1909. One interesting, if you're going to have a Stratford trivia contest, here's one of the great questions that will gain favor with your friends. Melville Hayes was head of the Grand Trunk Railway in 1909, and it was him, Melville Hayes, that came to Stratford. They had a huge social event for him, a huge dinner and dance, and he was the decision maker for the Grand Trunk Railway. That night he met a woman from Stratford. He ended up falling in love with her, and all of a sudden Winnipeg and Montreal became suitors number 2 and suitors number 3, and the woman in Stratford became suitor number 1. Tragically, another trivia question, whatever happened to Melville Hayes? Died on the Titanic in 1912. In war, we think about the shops as being a railway institution, which of course it was. In the war, it converted to making war munitions. 1917, 1/3 of the shells fired by the Allies in World War I were made in Canada, and 50% of those were made at the shops in Stratford. Similarly, in the Second World War, the shops were really dedicated to refurbishing steam locomotives that were damaged in the war effort in England, Europe, and through the Allied countries, where steam engines were shipped over here, refurbished, and then sent back. In addition to that, steam engines in North America that had become dilapidated or were taken out of service, they were refurbished and they were sent to Europe, and they were an important part of the war effort. 1923, we talk about the Grand Trunk Railway and we talk about the C&R shops. 1923, those 2 companies merge, and they become the largest railway company in North America at the time. I want to talk a little bit about the war effort in 1939 to 1945, because this is where one of the social impacts really took place. And if you look at this slide here, 67 women were employed in what was defined as heavy industry in 1939 to 1945. So it was really one of the first times in Southern Ontario that women were in a factory environment and not in the office. The interesting part about that is if you look at the labor history of Stratford, when the war ended in 1945, a lot of those women said, I'm not really crazy about going back to being a housewife. I like working in a factory. I like the social environment of it. I like the ability to have a wage. And Stratford ended up with a very strong labor history. It began with the general strike in 1933, but throughout that, Stratford's labor history, and I'm not a unionist, but I can tell you that in a union environment, quite often the standard of living is higher. And if we look at Stratford and we look at comparable communities like ours, there's a case to be made that the standard of living here in Stratford is a little bit higher. We can draw a straight line from the shops in the 1930s to that standard of living today. Not only were there 67 women who worked there, that created an environment for when one of the largest unionized CAW locals in Canada existed at Canada Fabricated Products. Some of the same women who worked at the shops worked at Canada Fab. Some of the same women who worked at Kraylers worked at Canada Fab. And that was Roxy Baker, who I wrote a number of articles about, organized the largest CAW local that was dominated by women in this country. So there's a line that can be drawn, a social impact, economic line can be drawn from the shops. In addition to that, the shops was one of the first places in Stratford and in Perth County to have an apprenticeship program. Apprenticeships are common now. They're common in skilled trades, plumbers, electricians, etc. The apprenticeship program was vital at the shops because of the danger of the place. They had nitroglycerin explosions, they had dynamite, they had all sorts of things. So they had an apprenticeship program which became the foundation of the skilled trades sector. And that too, I think, led to a strong economy through the post-war period, and I would argue right up in today, and why Stratford, I think, we can argue boastfully, hopefully truthfully, that we have a higher quality of life than many cities of our similar size. If you can go back just one slide, I can look at a couple other things here. If you look at the picture in the bottom corner there was a play called The Ladies of the CNR. Kelly McIntosh wrote that play. She now my successor at the museum. She put that play together. It was performed at City Hall, and it talked about the experience of women in industry. Two other things you can look here. In the bottom right is a picture from the municipal golf course. The municipal golf course was created, paid for, and really developed by the CNRA, which was the Canadian National Railway Association. That was the employees club. The CNRA was pivotal in creating the municipal golf course. Top left corner was National Stadium. National Stadium. It was also created by the CNRA, and many of the great players who came here were brought here to work at the shops. Great ball players from all of Ontario were reached out to, recruited, they were offered a job at the shops, and then they played for the Stratford Nationals, which was an amateur baseball powerhouse. The last thing I'll tell you, even in modern times, when I started at the Beacon Herald in 1979, I worked in the sports department. And I remember writing an article about how the CNRA Men's Cribbage League, which had 100 teams, and their night was Wednesday night. And the senior hockey team here, which was called the Purse at the time, they had to move their home night from Wednesday to Tuesday because they couldn't get crowds if they were the same night as the CNRA Cribbage League. True story. 1950, we talk about the economic and social impact. In 1950, the shops reaches its peak in employment with 1,500 workers in a city of roughly 20,000 people. 40% of the homes at that time had a current or former employee from the shops living in that house. Okay? So next slide. This is 6218, and it's the iconic, one of the 5 transcontinental steam engines that the Canadian National Railway had. It's an iconic photo of it hanging from the ceiling in the shops. This photo is seen everywhere, and it's on display at the Stratford Perth Museum. No promises, but I can tell you that in my previous role as the manager of the Stratford Perth Museum, I did some research to find out where that train is and whatever happened to it. It's at the museum in Fort Erie. They have a railway museum there. I've had a number of conversations with them, and it's available. I'm not saying that it's going to end up in the shops. I don't know how it's going to get here. I don't know how you'd get it here. All I'm saying is it's available. In addition to that, the museum's got a great relationship with the props department at the Stratford Festival. And I said, if nothing else, one thing we can think about, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but one thing I can think about is, wouldn't it be great to have a life-size model of that train made by the props department at the Stratford Festival and have it hanging from the ceiling? Okay. 1952, the writing's on the wall as the railways around the world switch from steam to diesel. Stratford makes a really pitched effort to try and become one of the locomotive repair places, but instead, the same 2 places are in competition, Winnipeg and Montreal. Melville Hayes isn't around anymore. There's nobody in Stratford that can reach out to the head of the CN Rail and, you know, have a nice dance and dinner and dance. And Stratford ends up getting mothballed. 1955 through 59, a series of massive layoffs take place. And in 59, the transition to closure is complete. The CNR leases the building to Cooper Bessemer. Cooper Bessemer in 1976 moves its work elsewhere, ceases operations at the site, and for all intents and purposes, the building would sit largely empty for the next half a century. So when someone says on Facebook or at Zares or as I walk through the arena and says, you know, that place has been empty as long as I've been alive, I could say that's correct. It has been. It's almost for as long as I've been alive. Talked to Dave Hunt here today. Dave Hunt, the former mayor, he gave a little bit of insight into what happened next. 1985, a Toronto company that developed shopping malls purchased a property from CN, but the deal never comes to fruition and it sits empty. 1991, the city of Stratford purchases the building and the site. 1996, the city of Stratford sells the building to a developer with the idea of developing and intending to build a hotel. That owner announces plans for 3 25-story towers for office space, condominiums, movie theater, etc. That never comes to fruition. A major fire engulfs the building, renders it into an empty shell in 2003. That was one of 3 fires at the site. That was the most major one. In our lifetime, and we can start to think about things in memory without having to go to the archives to find out, 2008, City Council begins the expropriation process, and in the same year, the University of Waterloo announces that downtown is a preferred site for its campus. 2015, City Council, and this is really integral, I think, to the conversation that takes place. A lot of people say, well, why don't we knock it down? Why don't you knock it down? Why are we still trying to do this? 2015, City Council decides that at least a portion of the building should be saved and the history of the site be recognized. 2017, the master plan for the site states that the superstructure should be reused, citing the building's current structural integrity and manageable environmental concerns. As an aside to that, I went through the building with an engineer, an independent engineer, and he said that the building, the superstructure of the building is about 108% of current building standards. We also think in a different way too about carbon footprint and the impact we have on the environment. As he said to me that day, to tear that building down with walls 3 feet thick and floors that he says we're not sure might be 20 feet thick, for us to tear that down, and he said, I don't know how many dump truck loads that is. He said, I did a bit of math. He said, I got somewhere around 10,000 dump truck loads. He said, and I don't know where that stuff would go. He said, from a carbon footprint standpoint, the idea of we should just tear it down loses a bit of muster when you think about the carbon footprint of tearing it down versus the reusability of the superstructure. I know that's one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about. You know, earlier I see Lauren Bolton here, who was part of that, part of that public outcry to save the building. So why now? You know, why are we getting involved now? And that's another thing. We've been talking about this for 50 years. The appeal process for the expropriation, it was complete in 2023. The time period for all appeals had ended, and then later in 2023, the city unveiled the early process for development and the ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee began meeting in November, really began to meeting in January, and here we are in March with our first public meeting. 2024, meetings like this are taking place. There's another one that takes place in April. There's probably 5 or 6 meetings a week where we talk about guiding principles. There's subcommittee meetings that talk about, you know, what this might look like, what it won't look like, and what the possibilities are. So I'm not sure that was 8 minutes, but that's 150 years of history, more or less. Thanks very much.
Well, I could listen to John talk history all night. You know, and thanks, John, for planting the seed of the locomotive 6218. You know, no pressure here. So I'd like to next, and John started to move into this territory, and I'd like to introduce our next speaker, and that's Joni Gerber. Joni is a resident of Stratford. She feels blessed to live, work, and play in her home community. As the CEO of Invest Stratford, her job is to further the economic interests of Stratford, and she does this every day. Joni is passionate about creating a supporting community where her teenagers can see themselves as successful young adults, and where her mother and other seniors can age gracefully with local support and resources. Joni believes that the CNR project will define our downtown and transform what a smaller rural urban center has to offer. Joni will share a bit about the economic development opportunities that would be available through the redevelopment of the Grand Trunk site. Joni Gerber.
Okay, Georgia Neely was right. There's a lot of you when you see it from this perspective. And John Kastner cut into all of my time. So I will do the economic development prospects of the site in 4 minutes or less, which in John Kastner time is about 20. So I'm told there was a clicker, but there isn't. I'm just going to trust Emily to advance the slides. So here at the core, my job every day is sales, and I can tell you when your product is spectacular, your job is pretty easy, and my job is pretty easy because Stratford is spectacular. We have so much to be pleased and proud of here. We're not without our challenges, but we certainly do a great job turning them into opportunities. And I would argue that this site is absolutely one of those. John's not wrong. In my lifetime, that site has been empty. My mother spent a lot of time on council, and when I was, running along behind her or typing memos in the clerk's office, or so I thought, this project was top of mind even then. So it is a great blessing for me to be a part of this and be as impactful as I can be in turning it into something that is, quite frankly, transformational for the city of Stratford. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about today. This is going to go on for an awfully long time. The economic impact of a site this large is significant. We can talk about the construction impact, the financial benefit to Stratford, the jobs that will create, but we also should discuss the opportunities for housing, for residential development, for creating a walkable downtown where people see themselves as living, working, and playing. You can go to the dentist, you can walk to the Via Rail station and commute or move into all parts of the province and even more internationally from there. There's an awful lot of really great diverse opportunities on this site. This is a community site. This has potential to be a residential site. There's a long list there, and our director of planning is also with us on this committee to really think strategically and creatively about what this site can be. This is not an exhaustive list, obviously, and you've got a really forward-thinking council leading this project and really thinking about how this site becomes a real anchor tenant, if you will, in our downtown. I do want to talk a little bit as well about partnerships. So I see, similar to John's comments about, you hear at Zares, knock it down, you hear at No Frills, you should. I don't have $500 million. I don't think anyone in the room does. The city of Stratford is not proposing to write a big giant check in my understanding. This is all about partnerships and collaborations. So will there be opportunities for private sector development? I believe there will. Will there be opportunities for not-for-profit sector partnerships? Absolutely there will. Where there'll be a number of stakeholders helping to drive this vision forward? Of course there will be, and you've got an ad hoc committee, a city council, a City of Stratford team led by our CAO, all ready to work and to do an amazing job bringing this vision to reality. Did I have one more slide, or am I good? That's a good, okay. I knew I only had a few, so I'm kind of happy about that. Again, I'm not I don't have all of the go back, go forwards like John did. I think I will wrap this up by really talking about, on paper, my job is to drive assessment growth. It's to make sure that there's a good mix of people and industry and retail and hospitality and all of the things that make Stratford what it is. But this is a community project. This is a community project that will need the support of all of you. It will need the support of our business community, and I can tell you that they are ready. It will need the support of our residents that don't live here yet because they haven't yet seen what Stratford has to offer. We're talking about a magical opportunity for the downtown core. You know, we are ready. Stratford has reinvented itself numerous times, and every time has been successful, and I am 100% confident that this will be another time for that. So I look forward to having a lot more conversations about what's possible on this site, not only the community hub space, residential space, the YMCA, as the University of Waterloo grows. I believe that we will all have a place there, and that we will all be proud to not only call that part of Stratford home, but Stratford in general home as well. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Mayor Ritsma and keep our agenda moving along. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Your passion for the city is unmatched, and you certainly will be an asset as we move this project forward. Up next is Melanie Hare. Melanie is a member of the committee and is the chair of Vision Planning and Architecture Working Group. As a partner at Urban Strategies, Melanie worked on the 2018 Grand Trunk Master Plan. Melanie has a background in urban policy, strategic planning, and urban design. Melanie's understanding of community dynamics, urban form, and economic realities has led to relevant and practical solutions to a variety of urban development challenges. She has prepared master plans, has reinvestment strategies, managed RFP processes, and completed extensive research on growth management policies. I'm exhausted reading that. We are very lucky to have Melanie here tonight and to be part of this process as well. Melanie, the podium is yours.
Good evening. I'm thrilled to be here tonight and to see so many faces. So not daunting, we'll just welcome you all. I'm also excited to be here to reignite. This is the first of many meetings we'll be having over the next 18 and 24 months to reignite the discussion about the potential and the opportunity. You've heard the words remarkable, tremendous. I would add, both as on a personal perspective as a resident in Stratford, but also on a professional as an urban planner. This is a once in a century kind of opportunity. John took us through the 10 minutes of the 150 years. But you know, this is another significant milestone in the city, and I, having become a relatively recent homeowner in Stratford, I'm amazed by the bench strength and passion and creativity in this community and resilience. So really excited to continue dialoguing around the potential in the future of the site. As Mayor Ritsma had said, a past role I've played was when the City of Stratford retained Urban Strategies in my firm to help them with the establishment of a vision and guiding principles in the master plan, which you might know as the 2018 master plan. And that helped the city. The reason that was necessary at the time is because in an expropriation process, a city or a public body can't just expropriate land. They have to have a reason to do so, a reason which is in the public good or in the civic good. So they needed to have a very clear statement about what they wanted this site for, and that was part of the tribunal process for expropriation. And so the master plan created two opportunities. One is to meet that need, so it could clearly state what the city's intention was for the site, but it also allowed for, not the first time and maybe not even the second time, but for the community kind of come forward and counsel and to work on to define what the future of the site would be. That work started in 2016, concluded with the 2018 master plan. Today, however, I'm here because having spent a fair amount of time in Stratford through that process, I kind of fell in love with the place. So 2 years ago, my husband and I bought a home here, and we're just enjoying our time here. I'm standing before you today as a volunteer. So I bring experience, I hope I bring value, but I'm also bringing kind of a passion for what I see as a really unique and tremendous opportunity. I work with a lot of cities, coast to coast, across Canada, through the continent, who may have a publicly owned site, a city-owned site. Maybe it's in the downtown, maybe it's not. They also are looking for, they may have partners who want to work together to create a community hub of some kind, but they may not have the land. Stratford has 3 key ingredients here. 18 acres of now city-owned land, fully in city ownership, 2 and many more, actually partners, but 2 partners on site with the university and the YMCA, the Y. And working together, that recipe has tremendous potential. But we also need to think about how, as Georgia said early on, this is a place which is innovative, new, and creates a kind of place that hasn't necessarily existed or doesn't exist now necessarily in Stratford. So I'm thrilled to be here. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the master plan, just because it's a bit of it's an important piece of work that was done for the community, with the community, and by council at the time, and it gives us a kind of a foundational moment to kind of build from. So we're not going to go backwards and start from scratch. This isn't a blank canvas. We're working, council has asked the community to work from the master plan, refresh, review, and move forward to craft a current vision, guiding principles, and framework for moving forward. And so that's what the working groups are all about. This has to do with the physical place, what could it be as a community place, as a place of cohesion, as a case of sustainability and resilience, but what are the partnerships that are involved? That need to be involved, what are the financial models that need to be explored to ensure this is fiscally responsible? What are some of the opportunities around environment and engineering and innovation that can come forward? And how do we communicate that? How do we stay, keep this dialogue moving forward? And so that's where we're at. A tremendous, exciting opportunity, and thank you for being here to begin to share these, refresh these dialogues. So, thank you for advancing, Emily, and the nudge. The 2018 master plan had quite a robust engagement. I think I recognize some faces from that time, but it was all sorts of ways of reaching out into the community, kitchen table, kind of workbooks, chalkboards, meetings, roundtables, all sorts of things. And out of that, you can sort of see a variety of images here. Out of that, what we heard were some of the similar things we're still hearing. So how do we capitalize on the momentum? Let's keep going. Let's make things start to happen. There needed to be green space. There needed to be flexible and multi-purpose programming, adaptive reuse of the Grand Trunk. As John has said, there was a decision, an important decision. Let's find ways to reuse this building, this important building. Parking is a priority. We hear that in every community of every size across this country. And there's a source of parking on the site which we need to think about carefully as we go forward. And you can sort of see the range of other messages we heard through the discussion, thinking about bicycling and cycling, needing to be inclusive and accommodating a variety of interest and user groups, and the desire for sustainable initiatives going forward. So we're building on this work again. We're here and working on some guiding principles as the ad hoc committee that we're going to bring forward to the community and make sure we're on track with those going forward. These are the guiding principles as they stay in the master plan document. The master plan document is available on the city's website and through Engage Stratford. It kind of looks like this. And so please take a look at it if you like. And I'm not going to read these 10 guiding principles. But our job right now, and what we're discussing at the ad hoc committee is, let's review and refresh these. 6 years have passed. We now have an acute housing crisis. We've lived through a pandemic and learned how to do work differently, how to get together as community members. We also now have, climate change is showing and demonstrating significantly the impact. So we need to think about resilience. We have a growing population. There's all sorts of things that have changed, and how do we make sure that the work going forward reflects that? Next slide, please. So the master plan, and a master plan is really a framework. It's not a specific set of designs or a specific set of buildings, or a specific set of open spaces. But it sets a bit of a framework. I like to think of them as being quite flexible. But enough grounded work had went into to create the master plan. We know there's probably some things that probably stick, that sort of make sense going forward. One of the top ones we heard through the dialogues with the community and from council, that the site needs to celebrate its history, that 150 years and its social and built meaning to the community. That there was an idea that there should be some sort of intersect and community moment on the site, whether that's, at the time was called a community hub. We're thinking about how to frame that, but the idea is still live. And where that exists, maybe it exists in one building, maybe it exists in multiple places across the site. And you can sort of see there were some other key elements here around some public spaces like what was called the Grand Trunk Spine. We heard a lot about the visibility from Downey and St. Patrick Street into the site. We thought about new streets and blocks that would be created so we could make sure we could connect to places like Mackenzie as one of those 4 streets that John referred to across St. David, and that we needed to think about how we could attract investment. How can we attract the partners to do this in a co-create way? Next slide, please. The master plan then sets out a series of layers, and we're not going to go through all of these, but mobility and walkability was a really important one. Right now, the site, Downey, St. Patrick, St. David's, and Cooper are its boundaries. And you can sort of see those on the outside, 18 acres within that. But there's a world around us, and how do we connect? How do we connect to Mackenzie? How do we connect to Falstaff? How do we connect to Shakespeare? And make sure this is kind of a seamless place to arrive at, but you've arrived. There's a point of arrival when you get here. And those circles are trying to meet. How does that, when you get across that threshold? Right now, you kind of trip into a parking lot, right? So, we need to think about what those places are like and connectivity. And we also need to think about some of the disruptors going forward. This is a town that's sort of been at the forefront of driverless vehicles. And we think about the disruptors around how people get goods and movement and move with things, and how more sustainably we could create transportation options. So maybe you don't need to get in your car. Could you get into a scooter? Could you get into a mobility device? How does that work as you get to the site, through the site, and beyond the site? And so there's some ideas in the master plan to kind of express those connections. Next slide, please. And from there really falls out what are a set of flexible blocks. What goes on those blocks we still need to determine, but that they're a set of a sort of a structure to the site. The transit terminal, which wasn't there when we started our work, is now there. That's fantastic, and you can sort of see that. So whether there are 5, 6, or 7 blocks, that's part of what comes forward. Next slide, please. Public spaces. These are the places we gather. This is the places we go for respite. These are the places we go for recreation. And what kind of public spaces should be on here? The master plan had some ideas, and this came from the community dialogue at the time. But there wasn't just one space. There was actually a set of spaces that were connected again. And so some of it had to do with the Y, some had to do with the bus terminal. As you arrive by bus, how does that look like? Some of it had to do with getting across St. David's and that portal. And so we want to explore that further. But certainly the public spaces on the site are going to be really important to the placemaking and kind of creating an inclusive, welcoming space. Then we talked about uses and programs, and Joni had a whole list of them up here. And those are all valid, and they will probably add to those. And we're probably not going to specify exactly this. We want to keep it kind of open and flexible, and I think with Adam's work on the official plan, that's kind of the way we kind of think about things. But generally, are there some buckets? Could you come and learn and leverage from the post-secondary experience at UW? How do you think about a community hub? Who's living here? What's the range? Is there intergenerational opportunities for living, working, and playing here? And then some practical things. How we're going to park some cars here, and how does that work within the broader downtown? So those are the kind of uses and programs, and we'll continue to advance that. And when we come back to talk in future meetings, that's certainly something we want to kind of understand what those clusters are. Then about the physical form, the buildings, if you will, the streets. How do they feel? How is the experience of moving through, getting to the place you're trying to get to for your dentist appointment or for your class? And we need to think about that. So the vibrancy of the place has a lot to do with how the buildings are placed and where they are in the streets. And the master plan gives us some sense of that. Next slide, please. And the broader parking strategy, and I've spoken to that. We understand, 40% of the downtown's parking supply is on the site right now. That's a lot of land being used for surface parking. So let's think about how do we do that smart and be able to integrate that into the site, but maybe not as just flat out land. So next slide, please. And finally, there's a lot of work that's been done about resilience and sustainability over the last 5 and 10 years. We talk about mass timber buildings, we talk about electric vehicles, we talk about renewable energy, we've got Festival Hydro right beside us. How can we think about all of those things and make sure that each building, each space, and the site is contributing positively to the environment when it gets built and over the decades coming forward? That's also part of financial sustainability. So this was the render that was created at the time. I'm going to say it's one way the site could look in the future, but I'd also like to say it's really just a point of departure. And we want to work together with the community, the ad hoc committee, the working groups, and kind of express that vision, which may not be this, it may be something different, that's okay. But this is just one illustration, and we need to think about being flexible going forward because part of the partnerships may have very specific ideas and great creativity that brings to the table as we go forward. So that's what the master plan outlined. Have a look if you like. We will be, as a committee, building from that, if you will. It's a foundation for us, but it's not fixed. It's meant to be flexible. It's meant to be refreshed, and that's, I think, what Council's asked us to do going forward so we can start those conversations with partners and get going on the momentum. So let's get moving. Thank you, Mayor Ritzma. I'm going to pass to you.
So thank you, Melanie. Thank you for moving to Stratford, and thank you for volunteering your amazing talents. So we're lucky tonight to have Trudy Jonkman with us. Trudy is the current president of Stratford Lakeside Active Adults Association, as you might know it as SLAW, and has been a member since 2015. I'm not a member yet, but I'm leaning that way. She is also a member of the ad hoc committee. Trudy has extensive background in community health across different roles. She is deeply dedicated to promoting health and wellness in older adults. She is committed to volunteering in the community, contributing her time to organizations such as the Stratford Symphony, Stratford Festival, and Stratford Summer Music. So thank you very much, Trudy, for being here this evening, and we give the mic to you.
Hello all, thank you. As stated, I represent Stratford Lakeside Active Adults Association, also known as the Active Adults. SLAW is a very difficult terminology for people to understand. It says, what are you eating with that? So Active Adults is the terminology we prefer to use. This association is available to adults 55 and over, or 45 years of age and fully retired. Our mission is to provide a central place where individuals can engage in various activities, access services, and attend special events that promote enjoyment and wellness. Furthermore, we aim to provide opportunities for people to participate in a diverse range of leisure, fitness, educational, and supportive services tailored to different ages, abilities, and lifestyles, fostering a warm and inclusive environment. We also strive to empower older adults to take an active role in volunteerism and to facilitate the exchange of ideas through meetings and communications with similar organizations. Upon reviewing our mission statement and goals, I find that they closely align with the discussions and visionings that are already taking place within the committee. Thoughts that have risen from the committee involve fostering a sense of welcoming and belonging, promoting playfulness and informal interaction, new energy, experiences and opportunities, wellness care, and so much more. I believe my position on the committee extends beyond representing just members of the Active Adults Association. Instead, I see myself as a voice of all adults within the demographic population of 55 years and older, and all of those who will join that age bracket in the future. Upon examining Statistics Canada census data from April 2022, I discovered that there are 15,090 individuals over the age of 50 living in Stratford. The present population of Stratford is 32,386. This means that 46% of the current population of Stratford is over the age of 50. While I couldn't find specific information, I suspect that a lot of people moving into Stratford are retirees, attracted by Stratford's culture, offerings, and amenities. These new residents contribute to our community's vitality, and we are delighted to welcome them. However, it's essential to acknowledge that aging is a universal reality. We face a significant challenge dubbed a demographic time bomb. Baby boomers are those of us who are born between the ages of 1946 and 1964. The bulk, sometimes called a rabbit and a snake, are projected to be 85 years old in 2040. This demographic shift poses various challenges, including challenges in healthcare and housing. I could bore you ad nauseum with details and statistics. There are many sources of information available about upcoming challenges on the internet and reports that are respected. My hope, and I suspect all of our hope, is that we will remain healthy and completely independent until we die. But realistically, I suspect that is not always going to be the case. What happened when baby boomers reached school age? Many schools were built to meet that need. What happened when they aged beyond school years? Schools were closed. Is the present healthcare system going to be able to build nursing homes and retirement homes to meet the needs of the upcoming bulk of baby boomers? I would suggest it is unlikely. So what are we to do? We have an opportunity that is both wonderful and welcoming. In Stratford, it is an amazing opportunity, and we must seize that opportunity presented by the 18 acres of available usable land, infrastructure, and existing superstructure in downtown Stratford. The words that came to my mind when viewing the interior of the superstructure was, "What an amazing industrial cathedral. The possibilities are endless." What is my dream? My dream is to have a place where social cohesion, both young and old and everything in between, can exist to foster a sense of connection and belonging. A place where everyone is welcome, irrespective of color, culture, gender, belief, age, abilities, or identity. An offering of diverse housing where the needs of older adults can be met and can continue to be used when demographics change. A hub that is multifunctional, where energy is present with opportunities of learning, volunteering, physical activity, nutrition, fun, and joy. A place where youth, students, older adults, and everyone in between can gather together to explore a vibrant mix of activity and housing, where people can take care of each other. A place where young people can interact with older adults, for example, assisting with the ever-changing technology advances, where older adults can have mentoring opportunities with youth. A place where dance, music, etc. are located as opportunities that are available for the enjoyment of all. A place where people can have access to healthcare options, for example, receiving help to navigate the healthcare system, implementation of future possibilities to meet healthcare needs. For example, robots, it's not that far off. There are already technology models in place that can assist older adults with remote medication reminders, etc., and other options that are only just beginning to be discovered. Access to hearing, dental, and vision needs, and so many more possibilities. A place where we can walk, roll, whether that be in wheelchair or stroller, and cycle, where we can sit and socialize, all the while enjoying a space that is environmentally friendly. A place where loneliness does not have to be an issue, as opportunities exist in abundance if participation is desired. In short, a destination place that will be the envy of many cities. I invite you to join us in embracing the possibilities and the excitement of this endeavor. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Trudy, for those beautiful words. Trudy and Slaw joined us at the Ag Society as they were awaiting this project. So it's wonderful to hear that perspective as well. So at this time, and I'm not sure whether there's a microphone, there will be a microphone available. I'm going to invite individuals forward to ask questions. And if you could identify who the question is going to be for before you begin the question, so that person can join us on stage. So do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, please come forward. I know you're up to it.
I think it's an economic development question, though. Is it the vision that the city will continue to own the full 18 acres and therefore will be the developer and the landlord of whatever is constructed upon the site? Mm-hmm. Or is there a possibility of some hybrid solution whereby portions may be developed?
I'll let Ms. Gerber come forward to start with that, and then maybe we'll take it from there. I see Mr. Betteridge in the audience as well. He's the Building and Planning Director, so I'll give it to Joni to start, and then we'll go from there. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. I think that's a great question, and I would ultimately the answer is always at the discretion of council. They make the final decision on purchase of city-owned land, whether it's industrial, residential, or otherwise. But the initial advice that I would give them at this time is a hybrid opportunity. I think that a project of this size is significant. We have exceptional bench strength on the City of Stratford development team. However, this type of project is very, very large. And so a hybrid partnership collaborative opportunity is certainly something that we should be looking at. Again, all decisions rest with the City of Stratford's council at the time. So, I would suggest that all opportunities come to the table at this point, and we really start thinking strategically about how we get this done in a way that makes sense for the residents in the city at large. Please follow up.
Yes. I'm not going to jump into that piece because the historical piece, maybe Ms. Thompson, I'm not sure if you want to speak to that tonight. I don't believe it does, but this person is far more intelligent than me in this domain, so I'll let her have the podium for this. And Mr. Betteridge, if you want to add something as well, I'll bring you forward as well.
If I could just get it repeated. Sorry.
Could you repeat the question?
So just to be clear, the City of Stratford owns the property and has the full ability to use it, dispose of it, or do whatever they want with it. We expropriated it at the time for the purposes of municipal economic development. That is a wide term, but that was the reason why council chose to expropriate the lands. We keep talking about we want to see development on the site. It's a large site, it's 18 acres. The city does not have the capability of $500 to $800 million that will be required over time to do the complete build out of that site. So of course, we will require partners and investment in that. Council, as you have heard, will make the ultimate decision, but there may be some opportunities where a parcel of land does get sold that fits within the Grand Trunk Master Plan as to what is going to be built on there. There would certainly have to be conditions and parameters around any sale of land, just like there is any time we are selling industrial land. There are parameters. It must meet the zoning bylaw, the official plan, our density requirements, things like that. But there are broad aspects of the Grand Trunk Master Plan to allow for all sorts of development that will be decided ultimately by the City of Stratford. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Betteridge, you want to add anything to either one of those comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My name is Adam Betteridge, the Director of Building and Planning for the city. I don't have much to add. What I would note is I think Ms. Thompson was correct in that the expropriation did allow the city the ability to move this parcel of land into a direction that the community really wants, and that's why this meeting is being held tonight. It will require partnerships. If there's any developer that's going to come and help provide and establish the vision that the community sets out for this place, there needs to be an understanding that that just doesn't come out of thin air. There needs to be some, if this site is going to be activated with some of the ideas and thoughts and ideas that we're hearing and that we'd like to see as a community for this parcel, a developer needs to have an ability to, the partnership needs to include an ability for that developer or that group or that real estate investment trust, however that partnership, that dance partner is going to be, it needs to generate some income for that developer. So we need to take the ideas from this group today, and so when there's a willing development partner that's going to come, the understanding is going to be is we got to take some of these ideas, and that development can come to fruition with that developer, provided a number of these components are put forth on this property, so that there's a real partnership and there's a real community benefit for us. So the expropriation piece, without having the terms of the, I would fail to think of a situation where the city would acquire a piece of land without the ability or the flexibility to be able to turn around and turn that back to the community. So I think Ms. Thompson and Ms. Gerber have, in the absence of having that document in front of us, we can't give a solid answer to that question today, but this is what we're here doing, is trying to see how this site can be developed with an outside partner. So.
Thank you, Adam. And from my perspective as the mayor, certainly it is a 3P. It's private-public partnership. We won't be able to achieve all that can be achieved on this site for the betterment of all people in our community without those partnerships. So thank you for that great question. Any other questions from the audience? Ms. Gerber's volunteered to bring the microphone to you if you wish. And if you could identify who you might think could answer this question then.
Joni, don't go away.
Okay, there you go.
Sure. So I think it dovetails on, well, start the question with the housing. If we're going to make the housing inclusive, so if we were to use non-exclusionary zoning, if that's the right term, then can we also then apply those principles more broadly? So that the creative principles that make this a good site, apply those principles outside the boundaries of the 18 acres. So, for example, non-exclusionary zoning would move outside and more broadly in the community. The idea started in my head when actually there was conversation about the parking I'm old enough to remember when there was talk about double-decking the Erie Street parking lot. So can answers to parking questions within the 18 acres be partly answered outside the 18 acres?
I'm going to invite Adam forward to start with that, but with regards to the parking piece, certainly we have to start thinking about parking on-site and off-site, because as we transition and begin to develop that acreage out, we are going to lose parking. And so that parking situation, the solution of that has to begin, I think, be looked at both on-site, stacked, and off-site. And you mentioned probably one of the key areas in Stratford that is so underutilized, it's the Erie Street. And there is dialogue going on about that. But I'll turn the other piece over to Adam.
Thank you very much. So there's a tremendous opportunity outside of the site going on right now as we speak, concurrent to this, and it's the city's official plan review. So inclusionary zoning or non-exclusionary zoning, attainable housing, all those matters. There's our Engage Stratford website has a portal right now where a lot of these ideas and suggestions can be brought forward. But with regards to the site, how housing, whether it's market housing, rental housing, inclusionary housing, all those, if it's brought forward and so we're setting the policy and the vision for the site right now. It's gonna evolve and transition into potentially new regulations through zoning and site plan agreements. So if we establish what we really want to have on site and move those levers so that a developer is willing, notwithstanding this is what the community wants, and how can we activate and develop the site so that we can have some community benefits and some housing benefits, but also some development potential for the developer itself. Otherwise, we need to make sure that balance is fit somehow. Otherwise, we risk not much happening at all. So great question, and there's a great opportunity with the official plan, and there is a requirement to see things happen outside the 18-acre set as well.
Thank you, Director Betteridge. I think we're going to have the microphone coming to you. Mr. Pham has it. Thank you. And who would you like to direct the question to?
I have no idea.
Okay, you fire away and
So all you committee people, listen up. First of all, my profound gratitude. I am stunned by the level of commitment and vision and work and how long it took to appropriate that site. Good Lord. I'm a relative newcomer to Stratford, and I keep walking by that place going, someone should do something to that. Turns out it's a 50-year project. So yay all of you doing the work. And I promise to show up to as many of these and, ask my questions. The vision that you are speaking of, each one of you, the Shangri-La that you imagine there, where people can come and realize their potential and exercise their bodies and their spirits and be in community, it seems to me, needs a library. That's where that stuff happens. That's where intergenerational conversations happen. That's where we care for the underserved. That's where warm tea is served. Like, everything happens at the library, and our community is grossly underserved. Nobody said library, so could someone say library?
I can. Former Mayor Haslam, thank you. So I'll speak to that, and if any other group member wants to jump in. That was a presentation last night. Was it last night? Last night at council. It seems like a month ago. But the CAO from the library came and presented, did a beautiful job of presenting the case about a library on site. Certainly a lot of questions for the CAO. Ms. Robinson and her team has done an amazing job of expanding and utilizing that existing footprint. It's phenomenal. But to that end, what staff recommended and council recommended last night was to send that idea of a new library being built on that site to the ad hoc committee, and that's where the discussion will begin, and then it will come back to council as per other recommendations that are going to go to the ad hoc committee through events like that. But a great question. She also presented something that I've seen in the Netherlands, in Tilburg, in the Netherlands, in the south of the Netherlands, location very similar, that has been redeveloped for a library purpose. And there's certainly so many amazing opportunities with a library, but I don't want to prejudge the ad hoc committee's thoughts on that. Anybody else want to fire at that? I think that. Question back here.
Hi, thank you. I'm also a new resident to Stratford, and I'm really looking forward to the festival season. I'm very excited. I love the city so far. I'm really enjoying it. I'm a new resident as of September. And I just wanted to ask, I wanted to bring up the fact about the parking. And we all know how important parking is in any city, especially with a structure of this magnitude. But I also wanted to ask of the building and planning individual, and also, sorry, I don't know the names, and also the economic development, is this an opportunity for a different mode of transportation in this city, to bring a different mode of transportation in?
Thank you. So absolutely, the site, I don't know if we can bring up, but to the east of the site is where our existing bus terminal is right now. So public transit is already built into this site and is part of the vision and master plan moving forward. I hope that answers your question. The other, yes, go ahead.
Or a streetcar, possibly, like another form of transportation other than busing.
Okay, so light rail is a tremendous endeavor and infrastructure feat that is if in 30, 40 years we are talking and implementing light rail transit, that means we did a fantastic job with our downtown. Fantastic idea. I don't want to make any preconceived notions about light rail, but I know that that's very expensive. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's something that probably isn't in the foreseeable future, and I don't want to speak on behalf of council. Yes. It's another great idea. Yeah. So. With the oncoming of electric vehicles, we don't see a future without automobiles, at least yet. Another suggestion where maybe in 40, 50 years, maybe. But what we do know is a lot of our visitors and people coming for downtown into the festival still use cars. So, but surface parking, and Melanie spoke to this in her presentation too, we don't have to see surface parking, and with 18 acres, there's a tremendous opportunity for multiple community benefits on the site. Parking is somehow going to be at least some component of this site, but as we've spoken, the mayor's spoken as well, there needs to be parking solutions beyond. We are moving towards where we're trying to minimize and decrease and actually almost eliminate parking requirements for private developments, but that still requires, like, people will still want, especially visiting so our business owners will want their customers and their visitors places to park. So parking, it would be ideal if we didn't need parking spaces, but we do. So I think with this site, there will need to be some component that at least addresses the parking concern. But about shuttling parking, that's a great idea that we could consider further.
Thank you, Adam. And before I call Melanie up, I think one of the things, we don't brag enough about our bus system in Stratford. The level of service we have in Stratford far exceeds many communities our size. But I don't think our philosophy of using public transit matches the quality of our existing transit. And we need to start to change that philosophy that I can get on a bus and organize my day to get to where I need to go. So great question, and I know parking's going to be a major conversation with the ad hoc committee. And Ms. Hare, do you want to come forward and address this?
Just really quickly, I just appreciate the comment and the questions. Absolutely, all of those things we need to keep in mind. Also, don't remember, This site is about 3-minute walk, 5-minute walk maybe, to the Via Rail station. You know, we've had some challenges with the GO service, but you know, if you get hundreds of units here and say, let's say hundreds of new people, thousands of new people, whatever it's going to be living here, that changes the dynamic. So I think we need to look at a lot of mobility strategies. So I just wanted to remember that we didn't actually speak about that, but that's one of the amazing things about this site as well, is its proximity not only to the transit terminal which is on it, and I love the on-demand transit service, Mayor Itzma, which is kind of amazing, but that we don't forget that when people are talking about the surroundings, that's part of the solution, and so I'll encourage discussion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought we had one over here earlier, and then we'll go back over to you as well. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bob Zarchansky. I live here. I have to unfortunately say that I'm a bit disappointed tonight because this is really the start of the opportunity that we have before us. And there's no grand plan, there's no grand idea. We're starting, as the lady here presented the plan on the presentation site there, it's a piecemeal effect. What we're taking is the opportunity for a grand event and turning it into little pieces. You yourself mentioned Amsterdam. The reason that people go to Europe and many want to live there is because there are grand ideas. Over the years, they have taken the time to have big ideas and work on those ideas, find a way to do it. Certainly, time isn't a factor here. How long have we been waiting to do something? And if all that we're concerned about is housing and parking, how can that be the focus of a downtown core? So unfortunately, it comes back to you, I guess, to answer the question.
Yeah, and I would love to answer that question. So thank you for the question. I'll say this, that we get one shot at doing this. We get one opportunity, and we need to take the time to get it done right. And I know it's frustrating, but that frustration comes from the legal challenges and issues that we've had for years. We own the site. Not only is it important that we own the site, but we need to take the time to engage individuals like you so you can bring those wonderful, magical ideas forward, those grand ideas as what you've said. Bring them forward in places like this. Bring them forward to members of the ad hoc and working group committee members so that we can, winnow those out to the ones that we believe are best for that site and that will serve our community best. Serve members of community that aren't even here yet. Serve visitors that want to come to this, that want to continue to come to this beautiful city. I make, no apologies about that. We have an absolutely amazing city. I just came back from a little junket in Taiwan. And I tell you what, it was wonderful to be on stage and brag about Stratford. So, the time that we're taking here is important time. And I don't want anybody not to think big and not to think grand. This is what this is all about. And I am so proud of what we're doing here. That engagement piece where your voice needs to be heard. And it's going to be heard in events like this and through those other committee working groups. A great question, and I like that you're challenging us on that. I appreciate it. Next question. I believe this gentleman at the back.
Good evening. I love the fact that there was some portals that you had mentioned from Mackenzie Street and was the other one, Norfolk, I think. And it crosses the train tracks. So is there a timeline in this proposed plan of when that might happen? I live on that side of the tracks, and it's a long way to access downtown if you're on a different side. So it was encouraging to see that this was an opportunity. Do we have an idea how long that might manifest itself and what the Goderich Railway impacts on that?
I'll invite Ms. Hare forward. But we are working on a 120-day plan that maybe Melanie will address as well.
Fortunately, Mayor, it will take more than 120 days to get across the rail corridor. Yes, and so some of this due diligence, there was some discussion with the rail corridor at the time of the master plan, sorry, the railway, and the corridor at the time of the master plan. There's a process to cross railways, it's called environmental assessment, all that stuff. So, you know, what we want to do through my understanding on the planning side with the working group is to identify, working with the planning director, a series of things that you'd have to get going and how quickly you'd get those going. So the connection, we think it's possible. There's lots of examples of that kind of, even if it's a pedestrian connection and not a vehicular one, which I think maybe would serve the community well, that makes a difference. So it's possible. We have precedents for where that has happened. There is a process to go through. And my experience with railways, nothing moves very fast. So maybe if it's a good idea that people want to explore, it's something we should start sooner rather than later. You're welcome.
So we have time for a couple more questions. We'll go to you, and then we'll come back to here.
Just a couple of quick points. One, about the idea of, again, with busing, that Denver has a free bus that travels all up and down the main thoroughfare, free. So you hop on, go downtown, come back. So again, if you have parking further away, say by the lake or something like that, it comes around, you pick it up, you go over there. And like talking about the corridor with the rail, I just was going along Erie Street and I thought, yeah, there should be something crossing Erie Street, say from Church Street, at least that level. I mean, it's a bridge, but something over to the property there. That's another way instead of trying to cross Erie Street. The other one is, I'm sorry, I didn't read the master plan, but just looking at some of the pictures, are we increasing green space other than the grass that's on St. David Street? Or is it purely economic?
Yeah, and that is a great question. Certainly, green space has been a big part of discussion with the ad hoc committee. And once again, my belief is that in the conversations, there's two pieces here. One, it has to be economically viable. We have to have structures there that are going to carry the economy of that environment. But certainly, there's been a lot of talk early on about green space, and I do believe it's going to be bigger than you or I would want to cut with our own lawnmower. So good question, and I appreciate that question. I believe this gentleman right here in the green Adidas shirt was next there.
Just a quick question. We've gone so far and we're putting in some good design. I understand that, but I haven't heard anything about what's been said for years. Pollution. Are we going to be doing anything, or is there a way of getting around that? We know that there's been oil drained into the, like below the building. There's got to be a way around it, I'm sure, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing.
That's a great, and I'm going to ask Ms. Thompson to come forward because she has led that work thus far, and the good news that she will share with regard to the environmental concerns around that footprint. So I'll give it to Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. So a 150-year-old former industrial site will have lots of environmental concerns associated with it. The site, since the city has control of it, has done extensive environmental testing on it and is working in conjunction with the Ministry of the Environment. So there are lots and lots of environmental reports and assessments that have already been completed, and they have identified the existing contaminants on the property. We continue to work closely with the Provincial Ministry of the Environment. They are the regulatory authority, and they advise us what cleanup and the extent of the cleanup that will be required. It will depend on the type of use. There will be a different level of cleanup of a portion of the site, depending on whether it's for residential, it's open space, it's parking, or it's some other type of use. We will need permits and permissions and approvals from the Ministry of the Environment to do that. That is extensive work that has been going on for a number of years. We have reports available. You can go onto our website and see some of the lists that are there. I would say that we have been successful in obtaining a record of site condition for a portion of the shell of the building where the proposed new YMCA and the community hub are to be located. That is a significant achievement for the City of Stratford, working in conjunction with the Ministry of the Environment to have that record of site condition. And that means that when the time is right, we will follow that plan as to how we are going to clean up the site. We have been taking steps all along to clean up within the building and outside of the building. There was asbestos, there's lead paint, there are contaminants with oil and grease and other things. We have taken major steps to clean that up as part of our work to date as the owners of the site. There is more work to be done, but at some point it will depend on the type of development that's going to go on that particular block of land. So we can't continue to do much more environmental cleanup at this time until we have more formalized, concrete plans in working with our partners on that.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. And I'm going to ask John, he wants to come and add a bit to that. I'll remind the group that we're going to end out with John's comments with regard, and then I'll finish it up. But there are going to be more events that you can ask questions at, and or you, after the event here tonight, there'll be opportunities to engage individuals from the different committees or councillors, and once again, there'll be other events as well. So John, I'll give the podium to you for 2 minutes.
Not even. So a lot of great questions here, as expected, and as anticipated, and as hoped. What I can tell you on the Engage Stratford site, if you go to the GTR project, Andrew Hilton and I, who are the communications co-chairs, we put together what we imagined, and this was in the very beginning with Emily from the city. We tried to say, what questions do we have? What questions are the public going to have? So on the Engage Stratford website, under the Grand Trunk Railway Project, there's a section called FAQs, which is frequently asked questions. So there are 38 questions there, which we worked through the ad hoc committee, talking to neighbors, talking to friends, my history at the Beacon Herald, the questions that would come up. So there's 38 questions and 38 researched answers on that site. So some of the questions that came up tonight, like Doug, like yours there, there's a researched articulated answer for that, as well as some of the other questions as well. So if that question's not answered, if your question isn't answered, there's a contact there. You can contact us. You can contact committee. We can answer that question quite likely individually as well. But where the hope is, with the 38 different questions, most questions will be answered off the site, and it's available through Engage Stratford. So hopefully that's helpful. Martin? Oh, yours. Less than 2 minutes.
It wasn't less than 2. It's John's time. So, and I apologize for the end. We didn't get a chance to answer all the questions, but we do have to be respectful of other individuals' times here. So I'm going to take a moment just to conclude here. And as we conclude the formal portion of tonight's program, I want to express my sincere appreciation to all who have participated. While there are many differing opinions on this project, and we've heard some of them tonight, and many uncertainties as well, I am encouraged by our collective commitment to dialogue and process. So collectively, we've been talking about this project for a long time. To move forward, we must address concerns openly and transparently. This is part of what we're doing tonight and moving forward. That's what we need to continue to do in future events and as John mentioned, the Engage Stratford portal. I want to also extend my thanks to our speakers, phenomenal different perspectives, and our organizers, and of course the attendees, but a special shout out to Emily Robson, Where's Emily? Right at the very back. Amazing job. She's our corporate lead, and she's our corporate lead for a reason. So thank you very much. Thank you, Emily. So it's through collaborative efforts like these that we can navigate challenges and find solutions together. You know, I have a photo of the Grand Trunk site in my office that sits right behind me, and I had it there because frequently if I'm on meetings, it's the first thing that people see behind me. And on a little sticky note, it says first. And I found that photo, and I think it's about the late 1950s of the Grand Trunk site behind a cupboard, and I had it reframed. And the beauty of that building will be once again brought to life with this work that you're doing here. So as we continue this journey, let's remain open-minded, respectful, focused on our shared goal of building a better future in Stratford through the Grand Trunk project. So stay for a few moments to speak to some of our speakers. I remind you as well, over on the far side here, greetings from the future activities. Please take a look at that and add your story to it. But I don't believe there's anything else that I want to add tonight. I'm looking to make sure I got the thumbs up from Emily. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being engaged. Let's continue this journey. Thank you very much.